Hello, everyone. I am Shawnta Jackson, and welcome to Connections. As you know, Connections is our opportunity as professionals to make the most out of professional networking, career advancement, and business growth via unscripted, unedited conversations with like minded individuals who inform and inspire. We are streaming on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, so please do enter your questions and comments in the chat box. And today's topic is a sensitive topic, and some of you may have been affected by suicide. And today we're going to talk about suicide prevention, suicide awareness. Um, and my guest is a person who has a, a lot of experience in the field, and he coins himself as a suicide prevention expert. And he focuses a lot on mental health and mental wellness in the Black community, and also suicide prevention in faith-based communities and among Black youth. And he also hosts, he's the creator of a YouTube channel, the Black Mental Wellness Lounge, and he'll tell us a little bit more about that. And at this time, everyone, please welcome my LinkedIn connection, a new connection of mine, Brandon J. Johnson of Baltimore, Maryland.
Hello.
Hello, Brandon. Thanks for joining me today. How are you?
I'm pretty good. And yourself? Thanks for having me.
You know what? Thank you for joining me. This is our first time actually meeting, seeing each other's faces outside of pictures. We connected on LinkedIn, and I believe it was just a connection. And then I said, "Hey, I have this show. Would you be interested in serving as a guest?"
Absolutely. I appreciate the invitation. I've definitely checked out a few episodes, and I'm a fan, so I'm happy to be a part of it.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot. So tell me about one of the episodes that you like or that you can remember.
I can't remember the person's name, but they were engaged in public health. I can't remember who it was, but that one was definitely one of my favorites because I'm in public health. So that one was definitely fun.
Female?
Yes.
It probably was Elisa Howard. She's a community health worker. She's a
Yes. Yes.
consultant. Mhm.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the name, so you definitely got me on the name. But I know it was public health related, and that's my jam. So it was good to check that out.
Yes, definitely. And everyone, again, we are streaming live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. Please do enter your questions and comments in the chat box. And then also, if you're not shy, check in to let me know where you're watching from. And we have our first guest checking in from Las Vegas. Good morning, In Your Ear Radio, Miss Latoya. Thank you so much for checking in. And so today's topic, it's actually, I want to know more about you as a professional as well.
Sure.
And then we can segue into our topic of suicide. And I'm wondering, is suicide prevention the correct term? Once I did the promo for it, I said, am I correct by saying suicide prevention, or is it suicide awareness?
Suicide prevention definitely is the adequate term of the work that we do, but awareness is definitely a part of it. So it's all encompassing for sure.
Yes, and the reason I say that is because I interviewed a woman who's a licensed therapist, and she shared. It was on a different platform. I had a show that I would do live on Saturdays and feature folks with lived experiences.
Mhm.
And she was a licensed therapist, and her father, who was a pastor, died by suicide.
Mm.
And from her perspective, and I don't know if she was wearing her counselor hat or her
Mhm.
daughter hat, but she said, from her perspective, she said, if someone wants to commit suicide, there's nothing you can do about it.
Mm.
So what do you have to say to that?
I would take a different approach to that. I definitely think that there are things that we can do to change that in an individual. And I think that there are a number of things for us to kind of keep in mind about an individual who is having suicidal ideation or suicidal thought, is that this isn't something that they want to do or something that they're purposely just choosing. They're just in pain, right? Like they're in pain, like whatever the stressors may be in their life, and we may never know all of them. We may never know what's going on internally, what's going on externally, some of the things that they're dealing with. We may not know that, but the person wants to be helped, and they want an opportunity to not feel the pain. And so if there is a mechanism that we can use to do that, to kind of relieve some of that pain, there is an opportunity to intervene with a person. But obviously, individuals who have lived experience, who have lost someone to suicide, may not have gotten that opportunity, may not have you know seen those signs. There may not have been any what we call traditional signs, or signs that we talk about in suicide prevention. So every individual death by suicide or suicidal attempt is different. It's hard to do a catch-all, but there have been many times that individuals have been able to intervene and help a person in that moment to think about reasons for living, and then to go on in doing that. So it's not a one size fits all thing. It's definitely things that we can do universally, but those are individual situations. And so she could have definitely been speaking from either one of those sides, with her particular experiences. So I'm not discounting that or discrediting that at all. But in the work that we do believe that suicide, can be prevented. If we are, trying our best to look at the signs and trying to intervene as much as we can in individuals' lives to give them reasons worth living.
And thank you for that. And thank you for being sensitive as well, to her feelings as well. So thank you for that. And when you were speaking, you mentioned traditional signs of suicide,
Yeah.
or traditional signs of someone being suicidal. What are the traditional? And then I guess if you say traditional, then so what are the non-traditional signs?
Sure. So typically, when we talk about suicide prevention, we're talking about individuals who may have, they may become isolated, they may become very withdrawn. Individuals also may become more irritable and aggressive. People may give away prized possessions, things that they care about, making sure that it goes to people that they care about in that specific time as well. Um, Having trouble sleeping could be a sign as well. Changes in appearance, all of those things are things that we talk about in experiencing suicidal ideation, and some of them can be verbal. Individuals may talk about funeral plans, or what they would want their funeral to look like, or even signs of burdensomeness, of saying, you all would be better off if I wasn't here, or I know how much of a problem that I can be. And so, there are a number of different signs there as well. I tell people it's important to trust changes, and trust your emotions, and trust your judgment in the people that are close to you. We're all more knowledgeable about the people around us than we are of everyone in general, right? So if you're seeing something and something seems off with someone that you're close to, trust your gut, trust your intuition, and reach out and ask them if they're experiencing any challenges that they're thinking about. If you've gotten enough information and you're like, I'm worried about suicidal ideation or attempt, ask them, are you thinking about harming yourself? Are you thinking about killing yourself? Which can be a very tough sentence to ask. Like, it's very tough to do. But trusting our judgment, I think, is an important one. Because it can come out in other ways. It can come out, especially when we're talking about young people, in reckless behavior. So it may not necessarily be, what we see. They may be isolated. It could be, angry. It could be, getting involved in substance use. It could be, I know, talking to some folks in Milwaukee, they talk about this thing in Milwaukee about stealing cars and then driving very reckless with the cars, that may be attached to hopelessness and some of the things that they've seen. So it may not be, there isn't a catch-all situation for signs of suicide. But what I tell folks is, trust your judgment, trust your gut. And if you think that something's off, if you think that something's changed, if you think that something may be there, ask the question, provide resources when you can.
Thank you for that. And a lot of the things that you just explained, it reminds it's there's the signs are similar to depression,
Hmm.
and but then also, just because someone is depressed, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have suicidal ideation as well.
Absolutely.
And I want to continue to talk more about this topic. And actually, for anyone who's watching that has experienced thoughts or contemplated thoughts of suicide, I want to finish by if you could speak to them. However, tell us a little bit about your background and your experience.
Sure, sure. So, my background is, so I'm born and raised Baltimore, Maryland, and so I went to Morgan State University, the amazing, the illustrious Morgan State University, where I got my undergrad in psychology. And so I was really into mental health and wanting to get engaged in that. And so initially, like I thought I was going to be a therapist and thought that that was going to be my route, but what ended up happening was like during my senior project at Morgan, we get to do a senior research project. I was looking at violence and mental health. So like in feeling safe, like how does your safety and your ability to feel safe, particularly on campus, is what it was back then. How does that impact your mental health and wellness? And so I had a professor at the time who said, "Have you thought about public health?" And I was like, "No, like what's that? Like I don't want to be a doctor." And it's like it has nothing to do with that. So not nothing, but it doesn't relate to that. And so I ended up getting my Master of Health Science degree from Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. My concentration was mental health, and I really got locked into that, wanting to do violence prevention. So while I was a senior in high school, going through undergrad and grad school, I was working at Johns Hopkins School of Nursing, doing first I started as administrative work, and once I got my undergraduate, I started working on various research projects. And some of them attached to heart failure, some of them attached to violence during pregnancy and in partner violence. And so I really had this interest in terms of violence and mental health. And so I went and did that. And so I did some community based work as a part of a local health department. And once that was over, I took a position at the state of Maryland as a director of suicide and violence prevention for the state, which was a really, really cool position. I learned a lot. I got to plan our annual conference. I got to do presentations across the state on suicide prevention. I got to work with healthcare systems and suicide prevention, law enforcement, so many different things as a part of that position. I worked on youth violence prevention projects as well as did some work in human trafficking prevention as well. So I got to get across a number of different things. And so from there, I went Fed, and so not representing them right now, but I went Fed, and with that, I worked doing suicide prevention on a national level, working with faith based communities in suicide prevention, states, tribes, territories, all those other things, and so it's really been cool to do that, and I also have my side work that I do outside of that, which is what I'm representing today, which is the Black Mental Wellness Lounge, which is a YouTube page that I created during the pandemic, essentially to connect with community. Because you get to that Fed, we call it the 30,000 foot view. You kind of disconnected from community, and so my heart is in community, and so I wanted to figure out how to create something where I could connect with people. And so the Black Mental Wellness Lounge has been that, and it's grown and expanded and opened opportunities and things that I didn't anticipate when I created it.
So tell us a little bit more about the Black Mental Wellness Lounge. Excuse me,
Sure.
the Black Mental Wellness Lounge.
Yeah, sure. It's I call it my COVID baby. Um And so essentially I created it as as an idea that started from like one video. So I had one video that came out after the death of George Floyd. And so there was like so many people on my timeline and on social media who were experiencing all sorts of emotions and feelings about it. People were frustrated, angry, stressed, depressed, anxious. It ran the gamut, anything that you can think of. And so when I saw that, I was like, I do this work in mental health. I'm not a clinician, but my work is in public health, is in, I do a lot of work in health education. Also, I'm a master certified health education specialist also. And so as a part of this, I'm like, you can still have impact. You can still engage with people in a different way, like, figure something out. So I did a video just giving people tips, tools, how to unplug, how to manage the stress, what to do, what not to do, all those things. And I packaged it up and put it into this one video, put it on Facebook. But the response was really positive. It got like over 2,000 views. And I was like, I said, this is interesting. I didn't expect it to go this way. And so, like, as I sat with it, I was like, well, that's not the only topic in mental health that there is. And so the Black Mental Wellness Lounge was born from that. And so we're over 20 videos strong at this point, around Black issues around Black mental health. I've had some amazing guests come on, and talk about a number of different things. We did an episode on youth and COVID and mental health. We did one recently, intersections, um, that we all have. So it address individuals, African American individuals who are disabled in their mental health, individuals of the LGBT community, and how they manage their mental health. And so we talked about things there. We had a Black men roundtable. We did a faith and mental health. I mean, all sorts of topics. I tell people there's an episode somewhere for you if you go on and look at the Black Mental Wellness Lounge. And then there's another side part of it called Future Black Voices, where I bring on mental health professionals, Black mental health professionals, to come on and talk about their experiences and talk about like the workforce piece. And it's designed for Black college students, Black individuals who are, maybe entry level, etc. And they want to get into this work. And, there are different things that we have to deal with when we talk about professionalism, things that we deal with in the workforce that other people don't, as Black people. And so giving those coming behind me a leg up, and it's designed specifically for those interested in public health, mental health, and social work. So giving them a leg up, giving them resources, giving them access to professionals who look like them, who are in positions that they want to get to, I think is so important. It's my way of giving back, because I had people in my corner during those times, like helping me navigate to get to the point that I'm at. And so that's been pretty well received also.
Yes, and thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the fact that you're open and willing to support other professionals. And for those of you who are watching, especially on LinkedIn, please do connect with Brandon J. Johnson, especially if you are interested in mental health, public health, and social work in those fields, um, and behavioral health, social and behavioral health, definitely. And I sent out an email today, and I was telling folks, my purpose for this show,
Mhm.
and yes, there's the networking component, um, career growth and business growth, and individuals who inform and inspire. But then also, I thought about it and I said, you know what, I'm also doing. The majority of my guests are Black people, are people of color, the
Mhm.
majority, but I'm also demonstrating that sometimes, especially living here in the DMV area, you take that for granted because
Mhm.
there are a lot of Black professionals in this area.
Right.
However, there are people who are watching from other parts of the world, that may have different images portrayed to them of
Mhm.
Black Americans, or of Black people, or people of color in general. And
Mhm.
so they have the opportunity to say, oh, okay, so these are these professionals, and these people with these type of stories, and they have these resources to share, and these are their experiences. And just by watching, not only am I inspired, I'm I now have new resources
Right.
and encouragement to help me in my field and in my endeavors. And then also we have decision makers that are watching.
Hmm.
And and I think that by you being on this show and then the other guests, it's helping decision makers and program planners come up with better ideas, and it's kind of building their network. So sometimes folks watching, you may not realize it, but it's like, an opportunity may present itself, and it's like, who do I know? I heard of this from somewhere. Oh yeah, I can go connections to Shanta.
Right.
Contact
Absolutely.
Shanta. She may know someone, right? Or so we're all here to network and to support each other. So I really appreciate you for highlighting that. And we do have a question, and In Your Ear Radio wants to know, how can we get Black men to reach out for therapy while dealing with grief?
Yeah, that's a big one. Thanks for that question. The grief issue is one that we don't talk about enough, I think, in mental health and wellness, especially in our community, because we've experienced a lot of grief. I've been talking about this a lot in different platforms, but this pandemic, particularly for us as Black people, has been really challenging. Disproportionately, we were hit by cases of COVID deaths, and economically, we've been impacted more than any other group. Significantly more African American businesses have shut down during the pandemic, and so there's been a lot of loss here. We experience loss, and we deal with loss differently. But I think specifically to your question is it's good for people to know that you're a safe place to land, right? So like while they're in the grieving process, while they're dealing with it, I think there are a ton of different emotions that are surfacing at that point in time. And so I think people are ready to go seek therapy in their own time. I think continuing to mention it and to offer it as a solution is something to do, to let people know like this resource is there and it's there to support you, and just kind of taking your time and kind of moving them into that direction. I think aggressive force isn't going to work. People are ready at those times, and I think also if you can connect them to another Black male who's experienced it, I think it's definitely something that may be beneficial to get that. Like, I've experienced this and I've been able to do it. There are a number of resources out there. I don't know if the Black man you're talking about is a dad. There's a resource called Dear Fathers. They're really big on Instagram. They're on YouTube, but they do sessions, like group sessions with Black males. Also, it's once a month. It's called Straight Mental. I've been on it a few times. It's really, really good. But it's just like open dialogue with Black men, just talking. Grief has come up like quite a few times, and so like that would be a resource I would recommend as well. There's one called Therapy for Black Men also, and they have a website and social media accounts, and they talk about normalizing going to therapy and talk about grief and loss. I'm not sure where you're calling from, but there's also a resource called Roberta's House. They're based in Baltimore, but they have resources for people across the country, and they are a organization that specializes in dealing with individuals in their grief. They have mental health therapist counselors. My brother is a therapist who works with them, but a really good resource also, and they're called Roberta's House as well. And so, if you reach out to me on the Instagram page, I can definitely send you some resources and some other tips. But really, it's just it takes time, and we're all, I think people are in tune with themselves a bit to know like this may be the point I need it. But grief is such a complex issue. It takes time to kind of figure out even where I'm at and if therapy is going to be helpful in those things. And there are also ways to find a therapist that may have a specialty in grief that may be of benefit.
Yeah, speaking of finding a therapist, I actually I have a friend who is a Black man that lost his son.
Mm,
And just naturally, he asked me, because I'm a pretty resourceful person, if I knew of a therapist. And it was really hard finding a therapist that could match him, or
mhm,
and it was also very hard finding a Black therapist,
sure.
because of, they couldn't accept any more clients.
Mhm,
And then when he did find a therapist, um, he wasn't really clicking with the therapist. But also outside of, well, actually, I know another person with grief. Sometimes you meet with people and it's just not working for them. They're
yeah,
not finding someone that's culturally, that can be culturally sensitive, responsive, or someone that they can relate to.
sure. Absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely a challenge. I think that's, it highlights an issue with our community. There just aren't enough Black therapists to meet the need. I think it's good that we're at the point that people who look like us are into therapy now. I think that's great. But like you said, it's creating wait lists for Black therapists. I would offer up again therapy for Black men. There's therapy for Black girls also. And the Black Mental Health Alliance will help you connect with a African American therapist. If you're looking for one for your child, the ACOMA Project, AAKOMA, project can help you do that with your young people. So if you have a young person who, you need some therapy for a young person, and to find someone who's culturally responsive, someone who can exhibit cultural humility, they can help you do that as well. But, there isn't. And so I think another thing too is right now, because we're still dealing with the pandemic, so many more therapists are doing teletherapy, are doing telehealth. It's not for everybody, but it's definitely an option to open up that space and kind of get you connected to some other folks who may not be in your immediate vicinity, but may be able to take you on as a client. And so, um, we have a long way to go. I know there's so many of us going getting into therapy, but we're just not there yet. And so I think I wouldn't say don't go to therapy if you can't find a Black therapist. Like, go and connect with someone. And, I tell people, interview your therapist. Like, interview them, ask them some questions. I have challenges as a Black man around, dealing with my race, and dealing with racism and discrimination. Is that something that you can handle? Is that something that you can talk about? Is that something that you've had experience with other clients talking about? Do you feel like you have any, biases or issues that may prevent you from being able to, see me as a client and to be culturally exhibit cultural humility? Have you had cultural humility training? Have you, like, those are things that we can ask. The power is in our hands to do that. I know it can be frustrating because you may not get the right answers and have to keep looking. But I tell people, the first therapist you get may not be the therapist that you keep. So if that's not the one, there's probably the one, that's out there. So keep looking, keep interviewing, and seeing if you can get somebody who can meet your needs.
And we have Reverend Jenkins checking in from Prince George's County, and she wants to
Hey,
know, where is the Acoma project located?
the Coma Project is based online. They're based in Northern Virginia, actually, so you're not far from if you're in PG. But their resources are online. So if you go to a Coma Project, I believe they're .org, they're .org or .com. But if you Google them, they're AAKOMA.
Okay.
So if you
AAA.
Yeah, AAKOMA. And so if you're able to, so if you Google them, it come right up. Dr. Alfie Breland Noble is their director, and she's amazing. You've probably seen her on TV or CNN or somewhere. Just doing some great work. And so I would connect with them, and they're able to provide resources there as well. They
Okay.
specialize in youth mental health.
Thank you. And we have a few questions in the comments. So just everyone, as a reminder, Brandon, he is not a licensed therapist or counselor, so he cannot give medical or advice.
No.
that a therapist or a counselor would give. He is a health educator, and
Okay.
he can and an advocate, and he can share information. So with that said, we do have a question, Reverend Jenkins. She wants to know: is there a difference between Christian counselors and those who don't define themselves as Christian?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So Christian counselors essentially are kind of letting you know up front that they have the ability to connect the mental health principles of therapy and the type of therapy that they're delivering with Christian based values and things like that. So I would, I think that they're a good thing if you want to incorporate your faith into your mental health journey, into your treatment. Definitely go with a Christian counselor. And those that don't, doesn't mean that they're not Christian. It doesn't mean that they're not, Christian or have some type of faith. It's just that they don't, identify that in the work that they're doing. And it doesn't mean that they're not able to talk to you about the connection between your faith and your mental health journey, because, most therapists, are able to do that. And it's a good thing to talk about if it means something to you, like if it has a strong presence in your life, definitely, if you're comfortable, disclosing that. It's just that Christian counselors have, training specifically talking about those links, and can engage you, in conversations with your faith as well as your mental health. But that's a really good question.
Okay. And then we also have Christy McGee checking in from Monroe, Louisiana, and she wants to know, what are the biggest misconceptions that you see for people of color, and what solutions do you offer?
Specifically in mental health, um, if
Yes.
it's specifically in mental health, I would definitely say that if you have a mental health challenge, that you're crazy, that therapy isn't for us. I think it's another big myth. Therapy is definitely for us. Historically, it hasn't been. Um, as a lot of systems are in this country, mental health wasn't built with us in mind. And it's taken a lot of reconciliation and some change to really make it a safer space. So definitely want to acknowledge that. But it's in a lot safer space now than it's probably ever been. So it is a safe space, and it is something that can provide healing, for us. Again, if you're able to find the right fit for you, you're able to do that. I think there's still a lot of stigma in talking about our mental health challenges in our community. We go through stuff, right? Like we're more likely as a people, a black person is more likely to experience trauma, disproportionately than any other race or ethnic group. We're definitely at most risk for experiencing racism and discrimination and other traumas like that, but we're the least likely to get help, specific mental health treatment. We're the least likely of any group to go and do that. And I think that it's something that needs to be a part of our healing. I would also say too, building community is something that we've done historically. Like it's a part of our lineage. That community piece is important to us, and so building community and being open and sharing your challenges within your friend circle can help you get help and support, but it also may break down their wall of like I don't share about my personal stuff, or I don't do that. But if we can break down those walls and somebody going, oh, it's okay to do that, or you're sharing your therapy journey, and they're like, oh man, I didn't know, didn't know you were doing that. It breaks down that stigma. So I think it's also important for us to when comfortable, when applicable, but to be open and share those journeys so we can make it easier for other people to do so.
And thank you. And we're almost at time. I like for these to be short chats. But before we do, we have a final question from Reverend Jenkins. And one of the things, and I also still want you to provide just a closing message to
Sure.
anyone who has thoughts of suicide. Um, but we're talking about therapy, but I also believe in, for me personally, I believe in self therapy
Hmm.
and mindfulness, which I understand mindfulness is a technique or is a strategy actually included in some therapeutic models as well. And this leads me to Reverend Jenkins' question, do you think that reading books can provide adequate healing for mental health issues?
It depends on the person, depends on their situation, depends on the book. I think there are a lot of variables there that come into play. So I can't flatly say no, for that, because we're all different and all different in our mental health journeys, and we all may have different things that we're dealing with, and if it's you know something that may be just stressed or feeling overwhelmed, or or things like that, having certain books and self-help books may be enough. Like, that may be what a person needs. I think generally, if things are a little bit more severe and more challenging, I think it's one of those things of, it could be a part of the toolbox, but we may need some additional tools in the toolbox to deal with it. And so for me, I try to equip people with as many tools in the toolbox as they can. Like, even with some of these questions, like, I started rattling off, going on tangents about, like, this resource, because the one I may give you may not be the one that works. So my job, and for us in this space, like, let's give you as much as you can, and figure out what works. It may be a combination of things, um, as well. And so I would say, to answer your question, it could, but if it works for you, then great, like, continue to do that. But if it's not, and if you don't feel like it's enough and it's not giving you the results that you need, then you may need some other tools in your toolbox.
Thank you. And my mother, Belinda Norwood in Las Vegas, she says, "Good morning, great information. I feel very comfortable with my Black female therapist. Therapy does not mean you are crazy. Have a blessed day."
Absolutely. My therapist is a Black woman, and I'm very thankful for her, in her support, and it has definitely, been important for me. Like, our therapeutic relationship, means a lot, and has got me through some tough times. So I'm totally with you.
Okay. And everyone, you can follow Brandon on Instagram and in his group at Black Mental Wellness Lounge on Instagram. Also, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Black Mental Wellness Lounge. Pretty some nice videos. I really enjoy. I got to step my game up. I really enjoy watching, and then I'm also paying attention from a producer standpoint. Um, but in closing, Brandon, uh, for individuals who are not in a great space right now
Hmm.
and who are contemplating attempting suicide, what message would you have for them?
I would say, definitely, there are resources out there, for you, for sure. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-8255. 24/7, 365 service, yeah, available to anyone in the country, as well as the crisis text line, which you would just text the word home to 741-741, and a trained crisis counselor is able to text with you immediately. So I would say, definitely, we need you here. There's some purpose, some plan, some destiny for you. Like, definitely, continue to push and find those resources that work for you. If there are places, especially, I would say, faith-based organizations and community-based organizations that can help you take care of, like, the needs around you, because so often, some of the challenges that we have are just need based. Everyone doesn't have access to foods, and access to quality employment or healthcare services or great education. Like, there's so many things, so many inequities that impact us, and there are places and resources to help you in those areas, if possible, and if those are the things that you're dealing with. But continue to push, if you can, and to find those resources, and to tap into those resources that I just mentioned. And if you're able to find mental health supports and therapy, definitely would encourage you to do that. There are places that do sliding scales, or even free counseling. I know that for those in Maryland, pro bono counseling is a resource there, but there are others like them across the country. But we need you here, and so if there are ways to find, to help you feel better about your current situation, definitely reach out to someone and see if you're able to get connected in that way.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. If you are watching the instant replay, please do enter your questions and comments in the chat box, and then I'll follow up with Brandon and see if we can answer those questions. And for those of you who joined us live, thank you very much. I am Shawnta Jackson, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn screen name is Shawnta Jackson MPH. You can learn more about my business, Cause Engagement, at causeengagement.com. And as always, you can learn more about me at shawntajackson.com. And don't forget to go onto YouTube and like and subscribe to the Black Mental Wellness Lounge.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much. And thanks, Brandon, for connecting with me. And as always, everyone, he's also on LinkedIn. So feel free to connect with him if you're interested in a guest speaker, if you're interested in someone that can implement trainings or workshops. Please do contact Brandon. He is also available. And
Absolutely.
have a great day. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you.
Same. Thanks for having me.